And I want to start by saying that, you guys know that with the medical disclaimer, it's always for educational purposes. It's not to make claims. It's not for us to tell a physician what to do or a patient to do. We are not the doctor or the patient for particular patients. We are there to encourage them to have the best body and best life possible. If you guys could go to the medical disclaimer slide, I'm not sure who's doing the slide deck today, but if you could go to that, that would be great. So we don't want to use information to diagnose or for a health or fitness problem. We always want to tell, every time you guys hear me talk, and I know you're used to this, I say, please consult with your doctor. Legally, we have to say that. We have to make sure that people understand that we don't have their whole medical history. We are here to make each person's body be the miracle it is. I'm going to start again by saying this. We're worried about mutations of virus. We need to worry about our bodies being strong enough. I don't like using the word mutate, but strong enough so that we can overcome, thank you so much, everything and anything, right? Let's talk today about one of the issues that we should be talking about more and more: hypertension. Something I have struggled with, my family has. You guys hear me talk about cancer and Lyme disease. You also hear me talk about the fact that my health, I have always had issues with blood pressure since I was young, actually. And I have some children that have issues with it, my family. Not that we are unusual, though. I want to say this. There's a lot of people that have issues with blood pressure. Mine predominantly is stress related. So when I don't sleep and when I'm stressed or when I don't eat right, it impacts me. That's why the root products are so important to me. And I've said this to you guys before. Blood pressure, hypertension can change like that. So you've got to stay on products. You've got to support your body. You've got to take care of yourself. You've got to sleep. You've got to exercise. And you've got to do all of those things that are so important. High blood pressure is also known as hypertension. And it's a common condition that affects the body's arteries. So I want to say that again. It's a common condition. And it's a silent killer. That's what they call it, a silent killer. I don't have it in the slide deck, but that is what they call it. If you have high blood pressure, the blood pushing through the artery walls is constantly too high. And what that means is the heart has to work harder. And not only that, I don't have that I don't have this on here. The heart has to work harder, the kidneys, the liver, the brain, everything is connected. That's why when people have hypertension or cardiovascular disease, a lot of times they have liver or kidney issues, right? Because it's all related. Blood pressure is measured in millimeters of mercury. In general, hypertension is a blood pressure reading of 130/80. I've had high blood pressure as high as 190, over 110, 120, 130, 140. Can you believe that? And you would say, wait a minute, that's not good, because I'm flying all over, right? Some of you guys have asked me, have said that I've lost weight. You're right, I did lose weight because I was on a trip to Europe and noticed I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating right, I'm not exercising, which exercise has been a huge part of my life, my entire life, because I'm an athlete. And eating right has always been a huge thing, but I was so tired and working so much that I forgot to take care of myself. So here I am telling you guys, love yourself, look yourself in the mirror, and I'm not taking care of myself. How many of us have done that? All of us, right? Because we're always trying to take care of everyone else. And so I'm not any different than you guys. That's why I always say we're all in this together. So I really doubled down on my health, and now I'm doing much better. And I doubled some of the root products, I'll be honest, and we're going to talk about some of that today. So let's talk even more about that. First of all, I'm going to tell you, if someone tells you it doesn't matter that you have high blood pressure or hypertension, they're absolutely incorrect. Cardiovascular disease and things like high blood pressure will kill you. It's something that will cause a stroke, a heart attack, an embolism, all kinds of things, or it can cause your liver and kidneys to shut down. I mean, there's all kinds of things it causes. It increases your chances of depression and anxiety, because blood pressure is where the blood and the heart is pumping. And when it's pumping too hard, it doesn't work right, and your pressure becomes too high. There's two types of high blood pressure. There's primary hypertension, which is called essential hypertension, and there's secondary hypertension. Most adults identify in the first one, which is where the blood pressure is increasing gradually over years. I don't fit into this one. Mine happened right away when I was young, like I said. So the secondary type of, thank you. Did you send to Lisa? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. The secondary type of hypertension, I'll make sure I talk about this too on here. Sorry, Ted came in to hand me something. He actually came to hand me a patent that I just got approved that I'm going to talk to you guys about today. The secondary hypertension is when there's an underlying condition. And many of you guys know I had a pituitary tumor when I was younger. I've had Lyme's disease. I've had, different issues with kidney stones and things like that. So I had a lot of stuff going on that would impact my blood pressure, but also there's genetics, which I don't have on here, that can also impact hypertension. And I don't say enough on the slide deck that stress, smoking, alcohol, lack of sleep, all of that leads to high blood pressure as well. But if you look at this slide, I'm talking about just some of the other things like gland tumors, pituitary glands, for example, which is, that's what I had, tumor. Blood vessel problems present at birth, so congenital heart disease or just even issues at birth. Cough and cold medicine, pain relievers, birth control pills, and other prescription drugs. Illegal drugs are horrible, cocaine and amphetamine. So even if you guys aren't doing those now, if you did them in the past, they impact you. Kidney disease or kidney stones, which I talked about earlier with me. Obstructive sleep apnea, which a lot of people have. In fact, a lot of women have, and they don't talk about it because usually people think it's men, but it's women as well. And then thyroid problems. So it's really important that you go to a doctor or that you check your blood pressure. At one point and I'm not doing this now because I'm doing much better, but at one point I was checking it, 3 to 4 times a day because they couldn't get my blood pressure to go down until I started taking care of myself. So here's a protocol. We have case studies, numerous case studies. So I had the doctor-to-doctor call today for education and for, we really need to talk back and forth with the doctors. I didn't have time today because we've had a tight day. Every 30 minutes to every hour I'm on calls or podcasts or interviews. So this is one of the protocols that pertains to some of the case studies because we have lots of case studies. When we combine them, what we came up with is a protocol that we could give to you guys as a recommendation of what people should take or might want to take, because we don't want to tell people what to do. And we know that every person's different anyway. Every person's on a different medication. Every person has different epigenetics and genetics and DNA, and everything's different, right? But we came up with this protocol because what we're trying to do is give you guys protocols for almost everything. So you can do podcasts, or you can do interviews, or you can do small table discussions where you discuss this. The protocol for hypertension that we're recommending is 2 times a day, 5 drops in the morning and evening for 3 days. Then every 3 days, increase by 1 drop till you get to 2 times a day, 10 drops. However, I said today on the call with the doctors, I also recommend for some people, because of peak plasma and because of steady state and metabolism rates, that some people do 7 drops in the morning, 7 drops at lunch, and 7 drops at night. If the 2 times a day, if there's a breakage and you're feeling high blood pressure, then you need to do it these 3 times a day, right? At either 6 to 7 drops, AM, lunch, and PM. The Restore, we're recommending 1 sachet in the morning for 7 days, then 2 sachets, 1 sachet in the morning and 1 sachet in the evening. That, of course, is the black cumin seed, the resveratrol, the turmeric, the raspberry ketones, apple cider vinegar, aloe vera, and D-ribose. So what you're doing, because I want to talk about hypertension, we understand that a lot of these autoimmune disorders and diseases, including cardiovascular issues, have to do with environmental triggers and factors. So whether it's pesticide or a virus or parasites or fungus or anything that's impacting our world, whether you live in an area that's had a war in the past, or whether you are eating too much fish, or whether you're getting shots, or whether you've had a lot of health issues, they're all impacting this body, and it's all connected, right? So giving the body things that will clean it out, will help unblock the P450 pathways and the other pathways in the body so the nutrients and minerals can come in, is very important. And that's why it's important to start with the clean slate. And then with the Restore, it's really important to restore and give your body what it needs. But the issue is if your body's not clean and the receptors aren't clean, it can't accept all the things you're trying to put in it, which is why it's such a key factor to make sure you're cleaning things out first. A lot of people take Restore in the morning. A lot of people take it at night. I say this all the time. When you're sleeping, your body's regenerating, right? So that really helps to do those things. If you're sleeping, you're getting double work from your body to accept these nutrients. However, I like to take Restore in the morning as well. Natural barrier support, we're recommending 1/2 of a teaspoon in the morning. I said this on the doctor-to-doctor call. Some people may want to go up to 1/2 of a teaspoon twice a day. But depending on your country, it depends on what your recommendations are. And I can't go against your governments. And so the governments, a lot of the countries lowered the vitamin C and vitamin D rate. And I didn't necessarily agree with that, but I don't run the country. So you have to go by the guidelines or you listen to your body. Relive greens, 1 teaspoon in the evening. I take 3 teaspoons. I take it either all at once or one to 2 to 3 times a day. Of course, it would be optimal if I would do 1 at breakfast, 1 at lunch, and 1 at dinner, but usually I just put it all together because I don't want to forget it. And it really helps me because if I don't take the Relive greens, it really impacts my body. It's something that my body definitely needs. And Relive greens is not just a support of the body and a barricade and blockade for the body to protect the body. It also helps as a pre and probiotic. It also helps just like Restore, and it also helps get rid of and detoxify things in the body or clean them out. So it really is a conjunct therapy with the clean slate as well as with the natural barrier support. One of the things that I've noticed is Immune Defense Shield, and this is recent case studies that we're finding. They do much better with hypertension if you're taking the Immune Defense Shield. So you should do 1 in the morning for 7 days, then 2 in the morning, and then 1 in the evening. Some people are even doing 2 and 2, or sometimes 1 and 1. But that Immune Defense Shield is really helping people with the cardiovascular. So those of you that have asked me questions until the recent data came in, I didn't know how much that was going to help in that area, but I did want to let you know that. And I think it's because of the mitochondria and the telomeres and the NAD and the quercetin and the vitamins and minerals really supporting the body to have more energy to work more effectively. So then your blood vessels and your arteries are producing things more effectively. And then Give Me Back My Youth. So listen, Give Me Back My Youth is not just for the hair, skin, and nails. It's for ligaments and muscles. Your collagen and your colostrum really help that. And look at the heart, look at the arteries and and your blood pressure. What's happening? It's pumping, right? It's a muscle. And so you've got to make sure those ligaments are working. You've got to make sure that they're working effectively. So Give Me Back My Youth, I think, is essential of at least 1 teaspoon in the morning if you're able to take it. I know some people do take it and some people don't, but I did want to make sure that people knew that was part of the protocol. So let's look at the scientific studies. And I think we're also going to go into, yeah, we are. We're going to go into strokes. So the next slide talks about the effect of curcumin and turmeric on blood pressure modulation. And this is a systemic review and a meta-analysis. Again, you guys probably know I love meta-analysis and systemic reviews. But this search was really looking at a variety of research articles and looking at what happens if you combined all these trials and the impact, assessing the potential risk of bias. So making sure that it was looking at all outliers, all statistics, and trying to see really if curcumin turmeric could help with blood pressure modulation. There are 11 studies comprised of 734 patients that were eligible in this meta-analysis. And the meta-analysis did not indicate any significant effect of curcumin turmeric on SBP and DPP. However, and these are all measurements that really scientifically, these measurements look at how your blood pressure is doing and how your cardiovascular effect is doing. So they're important. So they didn't notice any significant effect. So I always like to tell you guys if they saw something or if they didn't see it. However, in the subgroup analysis, it revealed a significant reduction only in the SBP in studies within 12-week supplementation. So guys, this means this may take a while. And that's why when you guys ask me, are they going to notice this right away? Well, they didn't right away. But in the sub-analysis group, they did because they were taking it longer, right? So I think that's really important to point out. In fact, for the doctors that were on the call earlier, I apologize. Tiger and Patrick, because I don't know if John Hayden's on this call, we need to make sure we send these slides to the doctors because they need to see this analysis. So if you guys can just give me a thumbs up and make sure we send it, this is really important for them to see, because when they're talking to patients, they need to understand this analysis. They no favorable effects of curcumin administration on SBP or DP levels were found after stratification according to either participant's condition or type of intervention. That meant after they stratified it, I do statistics. So when you stratify it, you're looking at different elements. So basically, they even looked at high absorption curcumin, crude curcumin, and turmeric, which we use a combination of that, or I do, in the products that I work on. So they didn't notice it. They only noticed it when they did this subgroup where they looked at the 12 weeks, so they were on it longer. The present meta-analysis suggests that it may improve SBP when administered in long durations. So please make sure you understand that. I try to say this all the time. You guys hear me. Zero in has a cumulative effect. One of the reasons is not just the 5-HTP. It is also the curcumin and how it's working in the body. It takes time. Same thing with Restore. And I always tell people, you guys, 90 days. Give me a 90-day window to try things because it takes time. And when you start something, this cumulative effect, you can't see right away because your body's adjusting. And sometimes you do worse in the beginning, right? So I want to make sure that I point that out. This does suggest we need more studies to confirm this. The next slide talks about effects of vitamin C supplementation on blood pressure. And I think I've talked to you guys before about this. This is a meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. We never claim to cure things. None of us do. Like, we know the ambassadors don't, I don't, but we do want to point people to the studies to explain why they're taking our products and why maybe they're getting better. Yes, it's their body's natural ability, but it's also the ability for the body to absorb and do things. I do want to say this, when people are taking the clean slate, I really want to do a study that we fund from Root, which shows that, or that Root funds, because I know that's Clay's companies, but he funds, where we look at this cumulative effect of our products and how long it takes, because we have so many people that will stop right when, if they would just keep going, they would get better. The objective of this particular study was to conduct a systemic review and meta-analysis of clinical trials that examined vitamin C supplementation on blood pressure. So again, they searched a database from 1966 to 2011, and they used randomized control design. They looked at effects on blood pressure. They looked at diastolic and systolic. I don't think I talked about that earlier. So your SBP is your systolic blood pressure, and your DPP is your diastolic blood pressure. And they both matter because you're looking at what's on top and what's on bottom. And when you get that reading, it's important that you look at both, because sometimes one's good and the other isn't, but they both make a difference and they both matter. Trial used oral vitamin C and concurrent control groups, and it also had a minimum duration of 2 weeks. Blood pressure effects were pulled by random effects modeling with trials weighted at inverse variance. And that means they were looking at the random effects of the model. They were also looking at if they reversed the model and the variance between everything. So in this particular trial, they, in the short-term trials, vitamin C supplementation reduced both of these, which is huge to me. And it was different, just so you know, we don't have it on here, but they used different types of amounts of vitamin C and different types of vitamin C. So I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out, because we do the same thing, or I did the same thing in the different products that we have. They said that there should be more long-term trials. Just so you guys know, when they do these meta-analysis, they point to what they found that's good, but then they also say we want additional trials in any meta-analysis. That's what they always say. But they did see, like I said, a reduction. And that's great, because if you can reduce those numbers like I did, like I have now, where I have regular blood pressure, then you don't have to worry like you do when you have a high blood pressure reading on either SBP or DPP. Both numbers, like I said, are very important. In fact, the bottom number is sometimes, your DPP is almost sometimes more important than your top number. And a lot of times people don't look at both, and they need to. So the next thing is on magnesium and hypertension and cardiovascular disease. And just so you guys know, when I say hypertension, in my mind, I'm thinking cardiovascular disease, because it's a precursor and it's involved in that whole disease pathway. So it's really important that you guys know, when you hear people talking about high blood pressure or stroke or heart attacks, just include cardiovascular disease and all of that. Even when you talk about cholesterol and different types of metrics, that's all included in that cardiovascular disease cycle. The combination of increased intake of magnesium and potassium coupled with reduced sodium intake was more effective in reducing blood pressure than single mineral intake, which I think is so amazing, because you guys know that I use trace minerals in a lot of the products. When you take Clean Slate, you know it's in there. You know that it's added in different things as well, and that it's included in Relive Greens and in the Immune Defense Shield. It's part of the natural ingredients as well as Restore. That's really important. Everybody also knows that we're not a huge believer in sodium, but definitely we are in magnesium, right? Because we know our body needs magnesium, which was one of the reasons when we first launched Clean Slate, I ended up, when I came back in, pulling it and adding the trace minerals, including magnesium, to that protocol so you could support your body. Reducing intercellular sodium and calcium while increasing intercellular magnesium and potassium improves blood pressure response. Magnesium also increases the effectiveness of all anti-hypertension drug classes. So I want to read that again. It increases the effectiveness. So Mark Houston's a friend of mine. Mark Houston's the one that we are getting ready to start the studies with. We were supposed to start in August, and we had a little bit of a hiccup on that. But Mark is actually one of my doctors, because when I had all these issues, he's someone that's a functional med and cardiovascular doctor and has done a lot of different things in this space. It's really, really important that you guys hear that statement. Magnesium increases the effectiveness of the product, because here's the problem. Some people that have high blood pressure do have to be on medication. But sometimes even if they're on medication, they can't find anything that works. I have a very dear friend right now that's tried everything, and he hasn't been able to get his blood pressure down. And so I, of course, started talking to him more about the root products and really discussing with him how it may take time, but he's got to be on these products to really support his body so that the medication he's on will work, and then hopefully he can get off that medication. I never tell people not to take pharmaceutical products or not to do surgeries. I only tell people they need to do what's best for their body, and by supporting their body's natural ability to take care of itself, you're able to help the patient or the person, hopefully, whether they're on medication or not. And then always the goal should be of any doctor and any hospital system and anyone is to get that patient back to normal. And then if you can titrate them down off the medication, hopefully you can, because then you can get rid of side effects. Because the issue with a lot of this medication that people take are the side effects. But what this is saying, that it increases the efficacy. And there's another research article that I don't have here that shows that this also decreases the side effects of the medication, which is equally important, because you don't want the side effects, you want the efficacy. The second bullet talks about it lowers the intercellular sodium and calcium and enhances blood pressure reduction. Magnesium is a natural calcium channel blocker. It blocks sodium attachment to vascular smooth muscles, which is the medication that a lot of people take. So this is so amazing that it's able to do that. It also increases vasodilation, PGE. It binds potassium in a cooperative manner, increases nitric oxide, which is one of the most important things. I'm just going to tell you guys. It improves the endothelial dysfunction, causes vasodilation, and reduces blood pressure. Huge, right? That's huge. So I want you guys to know, when people ask me about Clean Slate and how important it is, one of the reasons that I want that to be the first step is you've got to get all these things working effectively to impact any organ in your body, to impact neurotransmission, to impact anything that has to do with the microbiome. It's all connected. This is amazing. If you showed that second slide to someone that was in a pharmaceutical scientist like me, they would be like, wait a minute, this is what you're trying to do with everything. You're right. You're right. So magnesium's key, and you guys hear me talk about that. And it's really important that you guys understand what was put in the Clean Slate, what was put in our other products, and how important it is for people to make that the first step when they're dealing with certain things like this. The next thing I want to talk about is stroke. Stroke is the second leading cause of death and a significant cause of disability worldwide. It's the fifth leading cause of death in the United States. It's less in the United States because overall it's second. The United States does a lot with cardiovascular diseases. And there's a lot of functional and integrative med doctors that do a lot with hormones, as well as magnesium, vitamin C drips, turmeric, curcumin, black cumin seed, resveratrol, which we have all in our arsenal, as you guys know, to really impact people. So that's one of the reasons I think that we identify it earlier, because we have lots of testing around it. So it's really important that you guys pay attention. Again, the problem is once you've had a stroke, unless it's a mini stroke, and mini strokes are bad for you too, it impacts your life day to day, the rest of your life, unless you can help the neurons recover, which we're going to discuss that too. We're not going to make claims. We're going to discuss how do we help people, right? So nearly 800,000 people have a stroke each year. That number is actually higher. This is an older slide. That equates to about one person every 40 seconds. There's three main types of strokes. Ischemic stroke, which is the common type of stroke. 87% of all cases, guys. That's what that is. It's when the blood clot prevents blood and oxygen from reaching an area of the brain. Then you can have the ones that are aneurysms or you hemorrhage, and that is not as common. There is a connection between the two, but the second one is more like a rupture of a blood vessel rather than a clot. It's just a little bit different of a structure. And then the transient TIA, which is when the blood flow to the part of the brain is inadequate for a brief period of time. And really this causes mini strokes because you're not really throwing something or clotting something. You're just not getting enough oxygen to the brain. But over time, if you have enough of these mini strokes, they're worse than even having a big stroke. I have a friend of mine that's had a bunch of these mini strokes and she's not doing well at all. And it's a significant issue for me. And every day I'm like, are you taking clean slate? Because that's really important to me. I love her. I've known her since she was little and I want to have her around for the next 30, 40, 50 years. And it's important to me that she's protecting her brain. So what are the risk factors of strokes? Obesity, lack of exercise, sleep apnea, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, smoking, drug use, heavy alcohol use, stress. And I don't know why I don't have this on here. Stress, lack of sleep. All of those are so important. In fact, I read an article the other day that talked about stress may be the leading factor with high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, and strokes, because it basically ignites this epigenetic. So again, guys, this goes back to this root community is here to help people mentally, emotionally, physically, psychologically, spiritually, economically. Stress impacts all of us. It causes us to drink more. It causes us to sleep less or not get restful sleep. It causes people to do things they wouldn't normally do. It causes them to not take care of nutrition. So you've got to really support your body and support other people's lives so that they can have the best life possible. A stroke occurs when there's a blockage or bleeding of the blood vessel, which either interrupts or reduces the supply of blood to the brain. And the longer it interrupts or reduces it, the worse it is, just so you guys know. When this happens, the brain does not receive enough oxygen or nutrients, and the brain cells start to die. So that's why when the stroke, like some things have died, in the brain. I believe in regeneration of the brain. I have a very different process because I went through Lyme's disease. I went through losing my memory about things. And for me, it's all recoverable. Maybe not the same, but your brain is brilliant and we're miracles. And you just have to support the neurons. You have to support the ligaments. You have to support the muscles of the heart and really start rebuilding the body, which is why I think the immune defense shield, and I don't have that on, I think, the protocol here, because when we did this protocol first with doctors, they weren't able to access that. But the immune defense shield, I'm going to say again, for high blood pressure and for stroke, I think is very important. At least one, if not two or more a day. A stroke occurs, of course, when all this happens, but it really is something that when you don't have enough oxygen, this damage occurs and you've got to take people to the hospital. One of the problems is a lot of times people don't go to the hospital and they just keeps going on. And by the time they get there, it's too late. That is an emergency. So anytime you feel like your arm goes numb or you have a severe headache or you can't breathe, I tell people all the time, go to the hospital. If you have a sharp pain in your leg or sharp pain somewhere in your body, and then you have this heaviness on your chest, guys, you've got to go to the hospital. Or an intense headache, not a migraine, just something that feels abnormal. It's really important that you don't ignore it and you go get tested at the hospital. So what is the protocol that we're recommending? And again, I'd like to add a few things to this protocol, but if you look at it, it's very similar to the high blood pressure. You're starting with clean slate. 10 drops twice a day is what you're going to work up to, and you're going to do that gradually because strokes cause an imbalance. So you don't want to do it all at once. You want to do it over a period of a couple of weeks, or at least a week. And then you're going to start a sachet of Restore, and you're going to do that for 7 days. And you're going to increase to 1.5 sachets for 7 days, and then 2 sachets. So 1 sachet in the morning and 1 at night. If you want to break it up into 3 times a day, I'm going to say this about every protocol, you can. You can also break up 1. If you don't have the money to do 2, then break up 1 into 3 times a day. Just put it in the refrigerator so that it doesn't get too hot, but you can break 1 packet up 3 times a day. And then zero in 1 capsule in the morning for 7 days, and then 2 capsules daily for 7 days. Then 3 capsules. So you're going to go basically 3 capsules a day. You can either do that morning, lunch, and dinner, or 2 in the morning and 1 at lunch, or figure out the protocol that's best for you. If you're on different types of medication and you're worried, just make sure you're waiting that hour to 2 hours in between. And then, of course, always consult with the doctor. Relive greens, I do 3 teaspoons. I said this earlier, but 1 teaspoon is enough. In the evening is great. You can also do it either at lunch or breakfast. Let's talk about the scientific studies. Amino acids in post-stroke rehabilitation. Our products have amino acids, by the way, and the Relive greens and Restore and the different things we do, we have amino acids in those. They're just not specifically talked about regularly, and I should. However, I am working on a specific peptide branch change amino acid protocol. I think you guys know that we should have out soon. And that's important because patients with strokes are prone to disabilities due to muscle hypercatabolism. So this review, the researcher reviewed the benefits of amino acid in post-stroke rehabilitation, and they found that post-stroke patients, by suppressing the protein and the skeletal muscle degradation, it was able to prevent that. So your amino acids were really able to support the body post-stroke, right? And again, we have those in products like Relive Greens and Restore, and in some of the other products that we have, as well as a new protocol that will be coming out later, either at the end of this year or next year. Stroke patients supplemented with amino acids led to an improvement in functional and physical performance, and it prevented muscle wasting, which is something that happens a lot with stroke victims because they can't move the same. Same with Parkinson's disease. This is another thing that's very helpful with Parkinson's. It improves rehabilitation. There's lots of case studies that show that this happens, and that's why this is such a major thing that can support patients that have gone through strokes. It also helps with strength, mass, and function overall. The next one we're going to talk about is the neuroprotective effects of sonochemical synthesized silica nanoparticles in vivo models of ischemic and reperfusion injury and stroke. So we know where silica is, right? We know that Clean Slate is a product with silica nanoparticles. And this shows significant effects on remission of behavioral impairments in rats. The study was in rats. It also showed that it decreased the elevated levels of MDA, TNFA, MCP1, IL, IB, phosphor, IKKB, and NO levels, nitric oxide. All of those levels, we could go into each one, are really important. If you can decrease those elevated levels, you know that you're really helping protect everything that's going on in the neurotransmitters, in the cognitive functioning, everything that's going on chemically based, as well as overall systems in the body, cardiovascularly. It's very important. So we know this decreased protein level of NFKB also measured in SiO2 NP treated animals. Again, these are all chemicals and showing what's happening within the body. It reduces the damage, guys. The cerebral ischemic reperfusion in rats, right? So they looked at rats. I've told you guys before, their DNA is very close to ours. And it's really important to understand that this mechanism, the molecular mechanism attributed to the downregulation of NF-κB signaling pathways, which is really helping, is very helpful to patients with strokes. I think this is one of the key studies that I would love for you guys to even read further. And if you want to really read the whole study, you could contact science@therootbrands.com or at the International Science Nutrition Society. Before I get off, I do want to talk about a new patent that I wrote that just got approved. I'll hold it up. I'm pretty happy about this. I'm going to read it to you guys. This non-provisional application claims priority based upon the following prior United States provisional patent application entitled Natural Anthropogenic Microparticle Technology for all gel packs and beverages, application number 63-8090,747. I filed it October 13th of 2020 in the name of Christina Cook, because I still hadn't changed it to Rom, even though I married Clayton before that. It took a while, and I'm still in the process of that because of all the travel that I do with passports, but I got it approved last week. And I think I may have mentioned it briefly, but I think it's really important. And it's not a congratulations to me. I think it's to you guys, because this patent, I could read it. It's a lot of pages, but it relates generally to all dietary supplements. And it says more specifically dietary supplements or natural supplements containing different types of elements like tryptophan, vitamins, minerals, the B6 minerals. If you read through it, it goes into basically the Restore, the Relive, and the Zero In formulas. And it talks about that it increases sleep disorders, or it improves sleep disorders, jet lag, circadian rhythm, as well as overall metabolism, and impacts the overall cardiovascular system, as well as the rest of the body. So I'm really happy about that, because we have a lot of stuff coming out. Of course, when it talks about increasing, stimulating the metabolic system of the body, you guys know we have a weight loss product coming out by the end of the year. So and the weight loss product that I worked on, it was really important to me that it didn't hurt cardiovascularly, because that's something that's important to me. So we never know when these patents are going to get approved, or when I'm going to have to fight the patent, and not all my patents get approved. But I think it's very interesting that this did get approved, and it is, let me see how many pages, 18 pages. Let me see how many claims, so you guys know. And we can, if you guys are interested in this, we can get this out to you guys. Let me make sure. Haven't even seen how many got approved on it. We had 29 different formulations that I made in this, and 29 variations. And then I think about 120 variations on those first variations. So I'm not exactly sure how many claims total that is. But when you read the summary, the abstract, which of course we can send as well, it talks about incorporating magnesium, calcium salts, magnesium, colostrum, vitamins, subject to but not limited to the composition of present inventions that I have. Furthermore, additional natural ingredients which contribute, and I included everything from throughout the patent, everything basically that was in Zero In, as well as combinations of Relive Greens and Restore, and also some of the stuff that had to do with Give Me Back My Youth. So it's extremely important, because we know that our products work, but for me, it's never enough. And I don't ever want to claim to cure anything, but what I want to say is the fact that we continue to get patents approved and the fact that we continue to do the work we do, it's just a small piece of the puzzle. You guys are the integral piece. The more knowledge you have, the smarter you are, the more you care, the more you are a solution, the more people you'll help. It does not take a rocket scientist or someone with a master's in science or a PhD to help the world. Period. I kept going back to school so that I could be this piece of this puzzle. But the truth is, each one of you are so significant to the success of this company that it's equal to any impact I would ever make. So we all have to understand the information. We have to share the information. And then we know we will be met with criticism. Everything won't be perfect. So we have to be strong enough and connected enough to be here for each other, to be a light for our economy. And I'm speaking about economy, and let me tell you guys why. I'm not personally worried about money, and I'm not worried about the root community. I'm worried about the world. We have developed a fintech system that my husband developed that's able to honestly help people create value with the network they have. And I think it's genius because people have to be able to survive and buy food. But we also have the supplement line and the skincare line and the clothing line and the pet care line that we bring hope to people's lives. So thank you.